We'll therefore reflect on the 4 areas where he clearly misuses his power. And then, after writing abuse of power or misuse of power at the center, we can now diverge our arrow to the first point, because we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. In the first point, we can talk about sexual satisfaction. At the end of the play, when he sees a beautiful lady at the gate, then he surrenders to his fate. 2, we remember the time when he makes the radio presenter to sneeze and is unable to complete his mission as a radio presenter. And then 3, there's a man in the bears. This man who slaps a woman with shocking impulsiveness, and Taib decides to cause cramps, painful cramps in his stomach. Only ladies can understand that the men just be floating during cramps, during periods. Ladies have cramps, and Taib caused this man to have painful cramps for slapping the woman, becoming notorious. And then there's also a taxi driver who, when Taib asked him for a lift, waved him aside in haughtiness. Therefore, Taib decided to use his power for revenge. All these 4 instances reveal how Taib al-Mahdi used his power in the wrong manner. And then when writing an essay, therefore, the short stories require that a student gives all the details that are evident in that particular story for a student to score a full. And most possibly, if the student reads the story and masters it, then the points will just come out. The first one, the taxi driver. As he hailed a taxi driver taken to the heart of the city, the driver waved his hand in haughty refusal, speeding on his way without paying him further mind. Even though this was the first time such a thing had occurred, Taib's irritation was now greater than the past. He considered for a moment that he would make the driver suffer an accident on the road. Whoever is granted power like this must use it only for good. As he said to himself, his anger nonetheless got the better of him. He stared at the taxi's rear wheels, and what happened? And both of them exploded suddenly like a bomb. The driver pulled over and, drumming his palm together in frustration, glanced back and forth at the 2 shattered tires. Both at the same time, he exclaimed. Taib felt that he had taught the man a needed lesson, but had it been mistaken for mere coincidence? He walked by the man, casting a meaningful look and asking, "Can I be of any help?" But this unknown pupil glared at him, resentful and enraged. When Taib reached the bus shelter, he stood beneath it. So, he revenged against this man for waving him haughtily, and therefore he uses his power in the wrong manner. First one. Second point, as the bus pulled up jammed with humanity, he watched an argument erupt inside between a woman and a man behind her. He could not hear what was going on between them, but he studied the dimensions of the conflict carefully. Then the man suddenly slapped the woman's face with shocking impulsiveness. Taib was so startled by the incident that he focused all his energy at the offending man's stomach. Stricken by severe cramps, the brute unexpectedly doubled over, moaning and screaming in pain. The bus did not move until he was carried outside for an ambulance to fetch him. Meanwhile, more than one voice cried out, "He deserves it. That is what he gets for his bad manners and chickeniness." Taib al-Mahdi observed all this with satisfaction, certain that he had done his duty in the best manner possible. So, he uses his power to make this man suffer. And therefore, that shows how he uses his power in the wrong manner. His power was only to be used for good and not to harm others. Point number 3. Taib was intoxicated with the rapture of happiness and glory. He would purify both oral and visual broadcasting of what was undoubtedly unworthy of their noble goals. He would terminate any talks that displeased him by making the speaker sneeze spontaneously and emitting thrilling cries like those made by women at weddings, or flee at the onset of uncontrollable diarrhea. Without any doubt, he would be the trusty popular censor or mob the dangerous mass media communication. Now, this happens when he was at the cafe. He listened to the radio announcer expounding on promising development expected in future. Taib al-Mahdi was annoyed, so he acts out of annoyance and punishes the announcer. Similar promises had excited him before in the past, though in the end they had produced only frustration. His chest tightening and firing at what the man was saying, he commanded him from afar, "Tell us what has already been accomplished, not what has yet to be achieved." Then he remarked to himself that only sneezing would stop this broadcaster from speaking. Therefore, Taib uses his power to stop this broadcaster from speaking. Is he judge, executioner, and jury? Why is he judging based on what he hears? Who appointed him to be the judge of what people say and how people act in the society? Perhaps he was doing his own. Without warning, the man sneezed massively, then remained silent. The sneezes kept waylaying him until he was forced to conclude that an unforeseen illness had seized him. Rather than trying to talk anymore, he started playing the record saying, "Walk around and see." So Taib, without consultation, decides to sanitize the media because he felt that people were telling lies. And that shows how he misuses his power. Finally, something caught his eyes at the tea garden's entrance. He saw a beautiful woman approaching. Now, this is a section where he commits the most outrageous act. Gorgeous and enticing, she was a perfect replication of his lost youthful dreams. So she looked at what Taib had always admired. Swept by a surge of delight, Taib found his passions aroused in a way he had not known since he first married Ania, his wife, destroying the indifference he had dreaded since he entered old age. The surprise attraction amazed him. Truly, it was far from ordinary and hardly appropriate for one preoccupied with such a mountainous burden as his. She barely noticed him. That is where we find that he uses his power in the wrong way. This girl, beautiful as she was, barely noticed him, so she didn't have an interest in him. Her large round eyes wandered over the Zeus green lake and the ducks floating lazily on it. Does she have any idea that in a split second, he could set her head over heels at will? He hesitated a moment before sending her a hidden message. So he uses his power to send that girl a hidden message. Instantly, she threw him an answering look and seemed as though they were about to speak. His desire now ecstasy, he gave way to it in spite of himself. So Taib decided to try out and enjoy ecstasy and sexual fulfillment, despite of what his heart told him that he should bear the weight of correcting the sins in the society, as he had been told to use his power only for good. Would it do any harm to one who wished to repair the world if he also sought to heal himself? And in one shared smile, he utterly forgot both his fame and his life. Now, after the shared smile, he forgets all that he had believed in. He forgets all that he had desired to do. He forgets about the Quran and listening to the radio and dedicating his life and having sins that are forgivable. And in one shared smile, closed his notebook as they both stood up together, surrendered into their fate. When he returned to his house in the evening, he no longer had the power. He had lost the power. He was unable to help the society. He was unable to use his power for good because he had allowed himself to be carried away. Transgression and iniquity had led him astray. Even though he was surrounded by circumstances meant to subvert those who vacillate between principle and inclination, Taib made the wrong choice of sexually fulfilling himself and therefore lost his powers. In conclusion, many people who misuse their powers end up suffering. This is because those to whom much is given, much is expected. Therefore, if they do not follow a script of how they should handle themselves, then they end up suffering. That summarizes our essay today from A Man of All Sample. For more sample essays from our good book, A Silent Song, always subscribe to Sare Willy YouTube channel to get the most awesome analysis and perfect work of English. For today, that has been enough. Check you out later when we look at another story in A Silent Song. Another story. Bye-bye.